Good afternoon, everybody. Leslie Myrick here. I am Nancy Ganzikoffer's associate business coach and interior designer who is feeling that summer slowdown and having some cash flow questions for our girl, Carlene, today. Welcome back, Carlene. It's so good to see you.
Hello. Good to see you as well.
So, today we are going to be chatting about effective cash flow management for your business. And yes, that's kind of it's a
Mouthful.
title that maybe isn't the sexiest, but really what we're talking about is how do you get through the slow-ish times, whether it's summer or holiday. Like, we all have ebbs and flows in our
Yeah,
business, and effective cash flow management is how you're going to stay in business. So
exactly.
tell us what this is all about, Carlene. What do we need to know about cash flow?
So the good thing is here at C2 Accounting, we're also a small business and we're also going through our summer slowdown like everyone else.
Yeah.
And so it's all about managing expectations and managing cash. So as a small business owner, especially one like interior designers where you have like these large influxes of cash and then maybe things aren't going to be due for a little while. So you like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, is it my money? Is it the client's money? I'm not really sure. um, Figuring out one your margins and putting aside the money that's for your cost of goods sold. Let's get that out of your operating account first of all, so that you
Okay.
really have an idea of like what do I have to work with, right? And then let's start putting money into buckets. Let's put money aside to pay ourselves. Let's put
Okay.
money aside to pay our taxes. Let's put money aside for profit and then have that rainy day fund. Some people use that profit account. It's like it doubles as a rainy day fund. But
Okay.
because you know there will be times where things aren't as good as you expect.
Yeah, it
And before
happens to everybody. And I want
it
to make that
does.
clear too. If you're having a slow season, if you're feeling a cash strain, this is normal in being a business owner.
Mhm. Yeah, and if you're a new business owner, it's probably extremely scary for you because you
Yeah.
haven't gone through it yet. But we all do. And the key is understanding like what your recurring expenses are.
Okay.
We've talked about budgeting in the past, and talked about like, cost of goods sold because it's tied directly to your revenue. Like that's one thing, but
Yep.
it's all those operating expenses. It's the things that you have to pay, whether you have a client or not, to kind of just run the business. Those are the things that you really should be one controlling, right?
Okay.
Let's see how we are we spending too much. Let's
Yeah.
do that first, but then also understanding how much does it cost to run the business, and let's make sure we're putting some plans aside to have something there for those months where inevitably cash is not going to be where you expect it to be.
Yep. And I know as a business owner, when things have been tight for me earlier on in my business, the first thing to go was paying me because I still had software expenses and
Hmm.
other expenses that had to be paid. And I was the one that could get sacrificed. And that is not a good way to keep running your business.
It's not. And I will say, for those of us that has a partner that has a steady job, it's definitely a luxury and not everyone
Yeah,
could do that. So and especially if you don't have anyone else to fall back on those lean times, you really need to be
I
planning
agree.
ahead. And credit cards are great. I believe in business credit cards. I'm all about getting my points. However, what people fail to understand or what they don't always understand is that when you use the credit cards to tide you over, and then those payments come due. Well,
Hmm.
now if you haven't planned for, now you're kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah,
And so you'll get a payment from a client, but instead of using that to pay for their furniture and take the profit from that to pay yourself, now you're paying back the debt for those previous months. So I will say it's hard, obviously, to have a year's worth of expenses saved. I mean, that's just not realistic for most of us, but do what you can. Have a plan, start saving incrementally, and then you'll see the effects of those recurring habits.
so when you say have a year's worth of expenses saved, you're referring to if no new revenue, no new business came in the door,
Right.
you would be okay for a year to handle your payroll, paying anyone you need to, and all of your expenses to keep your doors open.
Right. And for
But you're
most
right,
of
a
us,
year
that's
is
not
a lot.
realistic. Yeah,
No,
that's not realistic. I mean, I think Nancy suggests, she suggests 4 to 6 months?
I
Is
think
that?
we usually recommend that, especially
Yeah.
for people that are maybe wanting to take the leap from a full-time corporate job to working on their own. You definitely need that cushion. I
Yeah.
feel like 6 months is a good goal, and it's hard. I mean, full
It's
disclosure,
hard.
I'm not there. I
Yes.
am aiming to get there, and I'm not there yet either. So, but I do think that's a really smart place to be financially, because if you have that, you're not as worried about the monthly ebbs and flows and
Hmm.
dry times, because you know that you're covered, rather than, like you said, robbing Peter to pay Paul and paying everything back in arrears with interest.
Yes, that's really what's going to hurt. So,
Yeah.
understanding. So, one of the things that I have found a few of my clients are starting to do is actually utilize the tools that we have in, say, QuickBooks, and
Okay.
actually put bills in from their vendors instead of just paying the deposit today. Let's say you ordered a custom couch. I love to talk about, you pay a
Mhm.
deposit today. You know, in the back of your mind that there's another 20, $30,000 due in 6 months. But so even if you have the cash, it's always jarring to get like this $30,000 bill
Oh,
come
yeah.
out of the blue. So having this bill in QuickBooks, you make a payment on the bill for the deposit, and now this balance is sitting there. So every month when you're looking at your financials, you see accounts payable, and you can see, oh, yep, that's right. I still have this. It's front and center every month when you get your financial reports. And it's something about mentally
Yeah.
knowing that it's there and seeing it, and it's not kind of like hidden in the dark recesses of your mind
Well,
that makes
it
it less
helps remind
scary.
you it's not your money, because
Right.
it's not your money, and
It's
you
not your
might
money.
be feeling like, well, it's okay. I'll pay it back later. And that's such a trap. There was
Yeah.
one time in my business very early on where I was not managing things well, Carlene, and I wasn't keeping track of that. And thank goodness this only happened once. And it was a local vendor I had a good relationship with. And we talked about it and made a plan. I spent money I didn't have, and a bill
Mhm.
came due from a vendor for draperies, and I didn't have the money to pay her.
Oof.
It was mortifying,
Yeah.
so embarrassing as a business owner, because I spent money that wasn't mine. I did not
Mhm.
have good cash flow management
Right.
and a good sense of that. So, what you're saying is, even when things are tight, do not spend money that's not yours, using it
Yes.
to tide you over and hoping you'll be able to repay that fund when those bills are due. And using a tool like QuickBooks, or because I do Profit First, I've got different bank accounts. I have that money that's
You read my
owed.
mind. See, you're still
There
my
we
thunder.
go. Oh, so
I was going to say the exact same thing. Get
I've
it
learned
out
a
of that
lot the hard
operating
way.
account. Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Put it into another account. That,
Yeah.
like, just get it out of there so you really do know what's yours.
Yes, that has been a
Yeah.
huge help, because I log in and I see my lump total and I'm like, yeah, this is great. But it's all broken down by accounts, and I know that chunk is not my money. I am not
Hmm.
touching that unless it is to pay that vendor bill when it is due. And that's a really
Exactly.
big shift I think a lot of designers need to make, is just because you've brought money in does not mean it's your cash to spend.
Yes. I have what I find a lot of designers when they're trying to make the leap, right? When they're trying to
Yeah.
switch from, so a lot of times they'll come to me and they're like, I opened a bunch of accounts. I listened to Nancy and Leslie. I opened an account, but haven't done anything. And
Hmm.
so we want to be able to look at your software. So for example, if you use design files, you're able to see exactly what your markup is on each invoice. So
Yes.
then you can clearly see this is the markup, this is mine, and everything else can go into the account for my client purchases. And
Yes.
what that does is it does this physical separation. And even it, and if you want to take advantage of using credit cards to get the points, you can still do that. Pay with the credit card, but now the
Yes.
money is at least sitting there to pay it off.
Yes,
Right?
I have a credit card that is tied just to that account, so that all my client purchases go on one card. It all gets paid from one account, and then you get the credit card points,
You get
because
the
we all
credit
want
card
that.
points. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I will say, if you have to use a credit card to tide you over, let's be realistic, it happens, right?
Yep.
I would, or if you, let me rephrase this. If you have to use money to tide you over in a shortfall, I would rather you use a credit card that you can then pay back slowly than taking from client funds. So let's make that super clear.
That's great
Um,
advice, Carlene. So
yeah,
don't be afraid if you have to use a credit card to get you through a slow month. That is still a better choice than spending money that isn't yours.
Yes, let's go ahead and use the
Hmm.
credit card. Have a plan for paying it back,
Yeah.
even if it's, the minimum. Have a plan for paying it back, but please do not use client money. Another suggestion when it comes to cash flow, and I feel like we're kind of jumping around today because all these like little nuggets kind of popping up. But when paying back a credit card,
Hmm.
if you can only make the minimum payment or a very small payment, make that, but then pay whatever interest charges were that month. So I'm going to repeat that. So let's
Yeah.
say you owe $5,000 on a credit card and the minimum payment is $100. Make the $100, but whatever you got charged that month, it was $35.72 of interest, pay that on top of it because you're really, one, you're making two payments per month. We're never talking about helping your credit score and things like
Yep.
that. But you're at least you're not like having the balances and just moving $20. You made $100 payment, you see like this small change, you really are paying off $100 and by paying that extra interest every month. So
That's a
that's
great
another
tip.
tip. Mhm. So we've talked about inflows. Inflows are, your sales, obviously,
Hmm.
and then using loans and credit cards and things like that to kind of tide you through. We talked about outflows, managing that, budgeting for bills, having a separate account, and having a buffer. I love that you were super transparent and like, hey, even I did this, even I
Oh
took
yeah.
money. Because I think people are embarrassed sometimes to
Yeah.
say that I did this. It happens, but what can we do to prevent it from happening again in
Yes,
the future?
exactly. Use it if it happens to you. How can you learn from it and prevent that from happening again?
Exactly.
Exactly.
Now, the last thing I would want to say is managing receivables. Hopefully, we don't have any clients because if they're following your guys' advice, they should be getting as much money up front as possible.
So we're talking
But
about design fees here, correct?
design
Mhm.
fees, right?
Okay. Yep.
Exactly.
You're right.
But
We teach
if
to get paid up front, but you're right. Not every designer follows that. So
mhm,
if a client owes you money, what
get it,
happens?
collect.
Get
Collect,
it from
collect,
them.
collect. Yes, I mean, seriously, and you shouldn't be doing any more work for someone who hasn't paid you.
Yeah.
So, the easiest way to get more cash is to collect what's owed you.
Mhm.
So let's get what's owed, and don't work for someone who hasn't paid you. I mean, that's a pretty simple one right there. So
That's a good tip.
that's a good. Sometimes it's the simplest tips, right? So
Well, and it can be weirdly vulnerable to go after that money, even if it's your money and the client agreed to pay you and sign a contract. And you just have to stand in that space and say, hey, client, this invoice is past due. Here's the link. Please submit payment by end of day. That is
exactly.
perfectly appropriate and acceptable as a business owner. And you're right. If you're panicking about money, but you've got a bunch of open invoices, you need to just put that business owner hat on, get those sent out, and either collect on them, or if you can't collect on them, stop that project
Mhm. Until
until,
you get paid.
yeah.
Yeah. Also, look at credit card fees. We're talking about
Okay.
like on the flip side, we love getting our credit card points, but as a business owner, ooh, those could definitely eat into your fees. So I know that a lot of designers will require or prefer to get paid via wire or ACH because
Mm-hmm.
credit card fees are just a lot. And you guys are dealing with big ticket items,
Yeah.
large dollar amounts. So definitely, if you're still eating and absorbing all those credit card fees, rethink your business strategy. I think most people, especially if they're dropping, $50,000 on a couch, can afford to, pay like by via ACH. So
Yeah.
there's no point in you kind of funding their dream vacation by taking those credit cards and letting those fees kind of cut into your bottom line.
No, and I will say I'm going to push back a little bit because luxury clients, high-end clients, they want to use their credit cards for ease and convenience.
Really?
They wanted to. Oh, I think so.
Ah,
People
see,
much prefer
no,
to pay by
remember,
credit
I'm not a
card.
designer. I'm just your bookkeeper trying to save you money. So,
And there's
yeah,
nothing wrong with having a company policy that says we only accept wires or ACH transfer. That is perfectly fine. I'm someone that loves getting my Delta credit card points and getting free flights. So I am looking at it from that perspective of I want to be able to pay for things with my credit card and use it responsibly. So we teach just to make sure that your margins and your hourly rate are
ah,
generous enough that I wouldn't
in
say you're
case,
eating the cost, but
yes.
it shouldn't be painful to pay those credit card fees. you need to have enough margin in what you're selling, your services and your products, to
Mm.
easily cover that on top of what you need to make to be profitable. So there's two
That's
ways
a
of looking at
that's a good point though. So making sure if you're going to take credit cards,
it. Mhm.
making sure that you're building those fees into your pricing structure so that you're not
Yes.
eating the cost. Now, see, you taught me something new today
There
because
we go.
I have clients doing it both ways, and I
Yep.
see clients who complain about it, and I'm like, well, I have plenty who just don't take credit cards. That's just not how they do
Yep,
business.
you got to pick
So,
what works for you. I do want to caution too, I'm not a financial expert, but my
yes,
understanding is I know a lot of software has a little box you can check that says pass the fees on to a client.
yep.
A, my understanding is that's not legal everywhere. And
Oh,
B,
mhm.
as a luxury service, s- getting nickel and dimed like that, I
Oh
think
yeah,
is very tacky. So
right,
that's not what we mean
exactly.
by make sure do not charge
Yeah.
your client an extra X percent for the
No,
fees.
yes, just
Bake
you
it
just
into your
bake
business
it into the
model.
business, and then that way you don't have they don't have to see it, but you're not absorbing it completely yourself either.
Correct. Yep.
So, yeah. Well, I think we talked about everything. I mean, because it's it's the end of the summer, and let's just kind of have a good summer, but let's not go broke in the process.
Yep.
Let's make sure that we're really to keep an eye on that bottom line.
And Carlene, you said something to me before we went live about, and I forgive me, I'm going to botch the exact language, but like basically when times are good, save that money and build up that cushion for these
Oh
times.
yeah.
Like when you've got a
Hmm.
booming few months, it might be tempting to go take that extra vacation or splurge on that thing you've been wanting to. But that's also a great opportunity to build up this safety net financially so
Right.
that when you do have those inevitable dips, and they are going to happen,
Hmm.
you feel more comfortable and aren't struggling or needing to put things on credit cards.
Right, getting into a saving mindset and
Yes.
looking at windfalls as not necessarily windfalls, but just an investment in the business. Pay yourself, pay what you have to pay, but see what you can put away and
Mhm.
start building. And you'll get closer to that 6 month reserve that you're looking for if you use those big windfalls. And it doesn't hurt as much because you're not having to put these large chunks away every single time, but take advantage of those windfalls and put
Yeah.
larger chunks away at that point.
And you know, I find that I can create better and work from a better mental space when I'm not feeling stressed about, well, I got to get this next job. Or like, there's
Mhm.
such a gift in having that financial stability where you can just show up, be yourself, do your best work, be creative, put yourself out there, and be okay with clients saying no or it not being a good like
Right.
when
Or
you are
you
so
saying
desperate
no,
for the
right?
next job. Yeah, exactly. There's a real powerful position in you being the one to say thank you for your interest, but we're not a good fit.
Hmm.
And the difference that you're going to feel coming at your work from a place of financial security and knowing that your cash flow is good versus I am so freaked out I can't pay my bills right now, that
Yes.
is felt in your experience, in your client's experience, in the whole process. So, what a gift if you do have a windfall month, if you have a big project, if there's extra profit, use it well to set your business up for success for those slow months that will inevitably happen once or twice a year,
Yes.
easily with
Yes.
holidays.
The holidays in the summer, I think those are the
Yeah.
two we all kind of feel it. So, but that's a great, I love that because it is a very empowering position to be able to say, "Yeah, this isn't working for me."
Yeah, this isn't working for me, or you're not a fit, rather than oh, this client seems like a pain, but I need the money, so let's go. And we all know how those jobs go, and they never end well for
It never
anybody.
ends well.
So, yep, there is
Exactly.
real power as a business owner in having your cash management under control. And I know a lot of us struggle with that. So, Carlene, you are definitely an amazing resource for our designers.
Let's do one bonus tip.
Ooh, I like bonus
I
tips.
love
Let's
bonus
go.
tips. So make sure that you keep your that cash in a
Mhm.
high interest paying account. So let's not just sit it in a checking account. Let's try to find look research your banks, research online banks, research your options. Make sure that the money is working for you too. So if your bank
That's
is only
great.
paying you a 0.5% interest, there are banks out there that are paying more. So make sure it's sitting somewhere it's going to do a little bit of work for you.
And you're talking about money that isn't for operating expenses, but money that you are intending to sit and grow and be a
Yes.
cushion,
Those
profit, whatever that looks like in your
exactly, that
business
the
model.
profit
Okay.
account, even your tax account, if you're saving up just to pay quarterly taxes, that money
Mhm.
is sitting most of the year.
Yes,
Let's
it
earn some
is.
interest on it.
I like that. Mine is currently sitting in a checking account earning nothing. So I'm going to
So we're
go
gonna
do a little
change
bit of
that.
Googling after this and
Mhm.
figure that one
Exactly.
Awesome. Carlene, you are such a great wealth of information and
Thank
knowledge.
you.
I'm so grateful. I know designers, we get asked all the time, who do you recommend for bookkeeping? I need help. Who do I talk to? Tell us a little bit about what C2 accounting is and how you help designers specifically.
Yeah, so C2 Accounting, we are a full service firm focusing on bookkeeping for small businesses. We have a huge uh, niche in the interior design space. So we help clients with everything from making sure that their QuickBooks is set up, integrating their software like Design Files or House Pro into QuickBooks. We make sure your sales taxes are taken care of. We can help you with payroll. Like our goal is to let you be your creative self and go out there and design beautiful spaces and let us just deal with the other stuff.
I
That's
love that.
kind of what we want to do.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing these tips so generously. Like, I learned something. I'm going to go do some Googling for savings accounts for
Yes.
designers.
Make
And
the money.
you got it. And we'll see you back here next month for more
All
great
right.
financial tips.
Take care, everyone.
Right.
Have a
Thanks,
good one.
Carlene.
Bye.